And hopefully that's us sorted. So, good morning everyone, you're very welcome. Welcome to the School of Geography and Planning. My name is Professor John Anderson. I am Director of Recruitment and Admissions. So I will be that person who will read your UCAS statement and your personal statement, everything kind of have the pleasure of it all going through me. So now you can put a face to that name. And my job today is to give you a broad overview really of what we do here in the School of Geography and Planning. So wherever you've come from today and whatever degree you're interested in, you're all very welcome. Within the school we do 3 undergraduate programmes, Human Geography, Urban Planning and Development, and a hybrid degree in the middle, Human Geography and Planning. And today I'm not necessarily going to give you a specific breakdown of every module in every programme. Okay, if you're interested in that dimension, we've got a whole range of videos that do that on the Geography and Planning's YouTube page. So simply Google Geography and Planning Cardiff, and there's a whole range of online materials for that. What I do want to give you, however, is a broad introduction to almost the ethos, the spirit of the school, what it's like to be in the School of Geography and Planning. And to begin, perhaps what all geographers and planners do is locate us. And here we are. I set up my drone into the skies, and we can see an overview of Cardiff, a city that some of you may be really familiar with, and others may be your first time today. But we are here in the Glamorgan building, a classic neo-Georgian architecture, and you can see our location in relation to the rest of the city. These are university buildings here. Perhaps you'll go across to main building today, and if you walk straight through main building, you come out the other side, and you see the new Centre for Student Life. We've got the classic and contemporary here in Cardiff, a creative city that is right on the riverside, the Millennium Stadium, the Principality Stadium, and the River Taff going through to Cardiff Bay. Cardiff Bay, note that parents, because that's where your children will take you when you come to visit, and they'll treat you to a lovely pizza down there. Okay, insist upon it. Okay, you do enough of them already, right? Okay. So Cardiff is a relatively green city, a relatively flat city, a relatively affordable city to live in as well. And the Cardiff University, as a campus, if you like, is right in the heart of the city. And it's a city that's changing. A city that is a really interesting city to live in. I'm just going to turn the sound off for that while I talk. The BBC is undertaking huge developments and investment within the city. A lot of the places in and around campus are being used as backdrops for films and TV, so it's not just doctors of philosophy like my colleagues who are standing there, but fictional doctors of medicine, even doctors that travel through time and space. And interestingly, of course, that are filmed on campus. We were filming just last week. And it makes the city and the campus and the school a vibrant place to be. Things are happening here. It's lovely that Doctor Who is looking in the map room. And you think, geography and planning must be important, right? And I love this scene, just set the scene, I suppose, of Lyra when she was in his Dark Materials, when she was escaping from her bastard mother. Where did she come to seek solace? Where did she come to kind of gather herself? But in the alleyway between our building and the next one, she sought solace here in the School of Geography and Planning. Kind of setting the scene, if you like, that it's a nice place to be. It's that actually the things that we study as academics and you as potential students within the school, the approach that we take mirrors the things that we're interested in. That the extraordinary relationships between people and places that is in essence defined by as well. We want to recreate. We want to change the world out there, but also change the world of your next 3 years of your experience and set you in good stead for going out there as citizens of the world. So, in the next 20 minutes or so, I won't necessarily give you a breakdown of every single module, but hopefully I will give you a sense of what it's like to be in the School of Geography and Planning. And on this journey, strap yourselves in, people, I will take you back to the 1640s and the poetry of John Donne. I'll then swizz you, just like Doctor Who, through to the present day, or in fact the COVID era that hopefully we're taking baby steps out of, and we'll end up with quotations from the Ukraine and the conflict at the moment. And through this journey, I'll hopefully give you that sense of what we do as a school and how this feeds into the undergraduate curricula. So we'll start back in the 1640s. And a very rough paraphrasing of John Donne. No man is an island. Perhaps if we were to update that for the 21st century for the university context, no student is an island. Perhaps that is a nice way into what we do as geography and planners. We look at these extraordinary relationships between people and places. You guys might be sitting there thinking, it's just me, right? It's just me. I'm here as an individual. But we just need to look just to the left and the right of you and realise actually you're not simply an isolated, singular individual, however much sometimes we like to think that. We are social beings. We're making the decisions about what we're going to do in the next 3 years of our life being supported by a network, by our parents, by our friends, by significant guardians who have perhaps even brought us here today. So when we think of ourselves and the decision that we're taking about what we're going to do in the next 3 years of our life, we're doing this as part of something larger than simply ourselves, as part of a social network. This quotation here was taken from academics working in New York and written during the COVID lockdowns there, when we were all, as we'll probably still remember, feeling that sense of isolation, that sense of anxiety, a sense of almost concern, worry, both physical and mental, about what the world was going to become. How did they react upon it? Saying, let's not worry too much, let's not be too anxious, because even though I feel as if I'm an individual locked up in my house, I will not do this alone. In dangerous and difficult times, what do we do as human beings? We buddy up. We find ourselves a sense of community. People want to give us that sense of community. Have we ever actually been singular? When you're a geographer or a geography and planner working within the school, we don't think. We think precisely along these lines, but we're not simply singular individuals, but we're part of something larger. We're part of a broader social network, but also importantly, we're part of a larger spatial network. We're not simply social beings, but we're spatial beings too. The geographies around us, broadly put, the social infrastructures, the people, the places, what those places stand for, what facilities and resources they have, come to define us in a particular way. We take and make the world out there that we study, and we take and make the world in which you are going to study, and that's a responsibility we take keenly within the School of Geography and Planning. So what do geographers and planners do? Well, we interrogate and hopefully create these extraordinary relationships between people and place. So think about your own sense of belonging, for example. Think about your home and the world we're living through, that sense of identity, that sense that, I don't know, we're coming up to the World Cup or the Six Nations, or when we're looking at big national occasions and say, what happens when you listen to your own national anthem? When do the hairs stand up on the back of your neck? Do you feel a sense of kinship, a sense of camaraderie, a sense of something that's larger than yourself? It's hard to articulate, but when you hear that music or see those people, or I don't know if any of you, I think it was on a Sky quiz show, but it was repeated on the BBC News channel, Martin Sheen, the actor, doing a talk about talking to the Welsh World Cup squad and saying, you sons of speed, the red mist is rolling down the valleys, and hearing his Richard Burton-esque tones. And as an English person, I'm going, I wish that sense of passion, that sense of kinship, that sense of attachment to a physical environment, but also a history and a kind of performative tradition that is part and parcel of what it's like to be in Wales. It comes to identify who we are. It's not just me. I am part of these people, in this place, and this history. It affects us too, these extraordinary relationships between people and place, in terms of our access to education, to welfare, to when we get our COVID jabs, what sort of school we have that we're in the correct catchment area for, what medical resources, what social and support resources might we have access to. We're all kind of aware of a postcode lottery in relation to these things. Geography and places matter and come to define us. It affects where we can go, what visas we need to go to particular countries. How easy it is to move between places, what we can wear when we're doing things, whether particular genders, whether particular ethnicities, where are influenced or have particular problems when they move in different places around the globe. Why are these orders and borders set up how they are, and how do they influence our sense of ourselves? And of course, it is influential in terms of the public spaces around us, the non-human spaces, the wildlife. Do we have a garden? Do we have a nice local park that, through instances of lockdown, can be our salvation, the thing that keeps us sane, if you like, and physically well? How do the different places and spaces around us come to define us? Perhaps when we look through the lens of human geography and planning at the world out there, we come to realise that actually, yes, we're no longer social beings anymore, but we're spatial beings too. As Edward Said said, perhaps in the cold light of day, none of us is outside or beyond geography. It's that thing that comes to define us, and if we focus on that, it becomes a mechanism as well as a lens to give us the insights and to understand contemporary problems out there in the world that can make our undergraduate life, for example, really exciting, and also make us really employable, because it's giving us the skills that the world needs to understand these problems. So this is what we do within the School of Geography and Planning, whether we're human geographers or planners or in this space in between. We look at these key themes and play out these different specialisms. Everything I've spoken about has an economic dimension, has a social dimension, a developmental dimension, environmental dimension, and, I would argue, most importantly, a cultural dimension. But what's, I think, key about the school is that we don't simply want to give you the skills to critically engage with those problems that are out there in the world in all these different specialist areas, the skills of critical thinking and analysis, but also take seriously that point that we are part of that world. We are part of these extraordinary relations. We need to change that world. You all are here because you want to make the world a better place. You want to make the world a better place for you. Yes. But because you're not simply a singular being, but you're social and spatial as well, you want to make the world a better place in principle. And so we need to apply those skills out there in the real world. And that's what myself and Joe and Ed do in terms of our research, and we feed that through into the undergraduate curricula. So what I want to do in the next few slides is just take you through some of those specialist areas that I've just mentioned, the economic, the developmental, the social, etc., and show what we do as a school and the research that we do to kind of almost evidence and bring you on this journey that criticality is important, being critical, not necessarily in the social media sense, just kind of judging things, but understanding the complexity of those issues, but being engaging and transformative, offering solutions to them, because they are the skills we want our undergraduates to leave with as they exit, if you like, their undergraduate experience. So perhaps the economic dimension is the thing perhaps we might be most familiar with. We're all, even if we're not formally geographers, aware of these processes of globalisation and the intensity and its magnitude, how it changes our local spaces through almost what seems to be like a butterfly effect, that something happens, a decision in China, and our local factory shuts down, with employment consequences and social consequences for our communities. There are a whole range of new power brokers in the global economy that aren't necessarily elected, i.e. they're heads of state or government, or even heads of state that aren't elected. Pregnant pause there. And these power brokers may be heads of multinational corporations that have no formal way in which citizens like ourselves can engage with them, perhaps only through what we buy, or where we buy shares, etc., etc. And perhaps those influences are becoming just as important as voting, considering through the economic, the perhaps different political spaces in which we function as citizens in the 21st century. But reflecting on these primarily economic drivers and how they change our employment opportunities, new sets of dependencies and colonisations, where you guys, as the future for us, may be working Are you still thinking I'm going to work within 30 miles of my parents' house? Or you're thinking actually as a geography of a planet, you can get an employment opportunity anywhere in the world. You get work experience anywhere in the world. You could do field study visits anywhere in the world. And through our programs, of course, you get those opportunities. So we can be critical about the economic changes that are driving the planet, and a whole range of projects that we do within the School of Geography and Planning, funded by a range of corporations, but also a range of government-funded bodies, the National Economic Research Council, for example, the Economic and Social Research Council, doing a whole range of critical work that seeks to understand how communities engage with, suffer from, but hopefully bounce back from these butterfly effect decisions that affect the social and local environments in which they live and operate. And of course, throughout what I've been saying so far, the economic bleeds into the social, producing a whole range of winners and losers, people on the fast lane or the slow lane of economic development, and that's part and parcel of what we do in our undergraduate curricula as well. Thinking about these different inequalities and how communities themselves respond to them. We have a whole range of experts within the school looking at informal economies, both in the minority world, the world in which we live, and the majority world, or the developing world as we might understand it, and how communities come together through a whole range of informal economies. Street children in Peru, for example, might, with a Western view, think it's street children working in these precarious environments, but actually these are often the mainstay of holding families and indeed societies together in those locations, working informally and often at risk, but creating an important set of ties and relationships and economic drivers that hold communities together in the absence of a formal welfare state, for example. So we ask ourselves these questions within the school and do a whole range of internationally funded work to consider issues of sustainability, housing, the informal economy, benefiting from funding and working with both the European Union, the governments within the UK, and of course the United Nations as well. These sorts of issues of economy and society, of course, also have an environmental dimension. And some of you will be coming from doing geography and think I'm really interested in physical geography and issues of the environment. And these are the things that we do within the school as well. And these are the sorts of questions that we ask within a human geography and planning concept. We can think about, from those points I've made about the broader globalisation of the economy, who's making the decisions about our oceans, our airs, our common spaces? Whose interests are being represented and heard at that level? And what is the role of popular protest, for example, and different generations in engaging with those issues? We can think more broadly about energy, life gaps and household budgets and all those sorts of issues, but they are part and parcel of the broader mix of energy paths that we're on as a nation, and to what extent might be self-generation, going off-grid, might become part and parcel of our broader national choices that we're making as a collective. We could be thinking about the moves that we might be making as individuals to green, make more sustainable, make more carbon neutral our consumption choices, our travel choices, etc. But how might we be doing this at a collective level as well in terms of eco-cities? When we think about, this is my favourite anecdote for open days. I'm going to wheel it out again. Twin towns, right? We get twin towns, we understand that notion. Cardiff was twin town with Xiamen. And when I first came to Cardiff, which was probably 12 hours Cardiff and Xiamen were approximately the same size, about 300,000 population. Okay? And of course, like a numpty, I therefore realised that that's how twin towns are, because they're broadly the same. In the 20 years I've been in the school, Cardiff has about 320,000 population now. It's broadly similar, but Xiamen, 1.1 million. In your lifetimes then, people, imagine a settlement growing from 300,000, 3 times its size. Think of the housing, think of the waste, think of the transport, think of the pollution, think of the environmental consequences. And that's one example in one of the largest countries in the world. What's the role of geography and planners in that context, rather than worrying about our back gardens, etc., which are hugely important, of course? Then you're thinking about, it almost doesn't matter what citizen you're choosing, it matters what the state is choosing. Are these cities going to be planned with environmental principles in mind, with ecological principles in mind? To what extent can they be eco-cities? What can the planning system and, broadly speaking, geography do to make sure those decisions of rapid growth over an almost unimaginable timescale? What can that do to mitigate the worst excesses of industrial expansion based on the lessons learned from the West? So, a whole range of critical questions that we can ask, as we do in our undergraduate curricula, that seek to engage and transform the real world that we're all a part of. Of course, all these aspects too have a political dimension. We've talked broadly about political spaces. In what arena do we as citizens get to choose? Through a vote? Through a buy? Through a Greta Thunberg-style protest? Maybe some of you have taken a Friday off school and raised your voice about issues of the climate emergency. We can look at those issues, but also think about the more mundane, everyday spaces in which we all are supposed to get a say. The planning spaces, public inquiries, consultation mechanisms, public participation more broadly. Do we all have, are we all equal in those spaces? Whose voice and whose knowledge and whose experience is valorised and championed and listened to, and who gets marginalised and silenced and put to the edges? What should our public spaces, our political spaces, how should they be like? Who should they be for? We do a whole lot of work within the school and encourage our students to engage in these processes, to reflect on those issues of whether issues of gender, issues of sexuality, issues of ethnicity, issues of religion. Do we enable our political spaces to be as open, as democratic, as perhaps on paper, ideally, we might like them to be? And of course, as a consequence, this has real world consequences for the decisions that are made and the consequences that happen. Now, I said we'd bring you right back to the Ukraine, and perhaps the most important, as I would argue, of all these dimensions, the cultural dimension. Some people might think that culture is just like the garnish on top of the cake. The cake is the main thing. Politics, boom, it's society, boom, it's environment, it's the economy, they're the main. Culture's this nice thing on top. But I would say, yes, perhaps, but secretly no. Culture, I would argue, is really the most important thing. What did US forces do? This is one for the parents perhaps rather than the students here. What did US forces do when they gained control of Iraq from Saddam Hussein after the first Gulf War? What did they do? Did they secure the hospitals, the airports? What was the first thing that they did? They took down the statues. They took down the cultural iconography of the previous regime. They put in your face, Saddam, the stars and stripes, symbolically creating a new dawn, a new era, saying these are the ideals and ideas, whatever perhaps the stars and stripes stand for, and whether you agree with them or not. They were symbolically saying a new dawn has happened, a new space is being created here. It is culture that perhaps is broadly definitive of all of us. So, taking down a statue of a slave trader in Bristol a couple of summers ago and replacing it, however temporarily, with a young black woman matters. It takes and makes the geographies around us and say actually either affirms a particular identity or it affirms a broader political idea that plays out through those economic, social and environmental ideas. So the very fabric of our cities, how are they designed and planned, by whom and for whom? How do ideas about right or wrong, good or bad, our cultural ideologies get played out in the places around us, and do we see ourselves reflected? I've got a quotation here, bringing us right up to the present day, from Ola Honshaw, who is a museum director and curator in Ukraine. And while the bombs are dropping around her and her colleagues, what are they doing? They're protecting the monuments. Why, perhaps? Because actually echoing what we kind of do in a school, we Ukrainians value critical thinking. We value this idea of understanding these processes. And actually what's going on here is Russia are trying to convince us that we are the same country, and we are not, at least from the Ukrainians' perspective. The idea that Russia and Ukraine are the same Well, this is a myth. This is a totalitarian myth, she would argue, that's dreamt up in Moscow. But from her perspective, Lenin didn't invent us. We are different. We are not simply individuals living in the shadow of this great totalitarian state, but the state and the sociality and the geographies, the places around us, are definitive of us. And if we lose our culture, we lose our identity. It's something to stand up and fight for, these extraordinary relationships between people and places. So I would argue what we do here in the School of Geography and Planning is, through this focus on the extraordinary relationships between people and places, give ourselves the opportunity to study what is critical in the understanding the problems of the contemporary world, but also a way of engaging with them that is both useful in terms of giving us skills, but useful in engaging with that world and transforming it to make it a better place. Through this process with myself, people like Joe and Ed and myself and the other colleagues you might engage with today are so passionate about these issues that, and hopefully you are too, that's why you're considering doing this for your undergraduate career. It makes our a really strong education system, but a really fun thing. It's things that we want to get out of bed for, that we're motivated for, that we want to change the world, and of course makes us highly employable. Makes you guys highly employable. Over 90% of our graduates in 6 months of graduation are within either doing postgraduate study because they love it so much, or they're in graduate level employment. Geography and planning are highly employable degrees, and if we've got time, I can talk a little bit more about that or answer any questions you might have about that. So where are we at? So I'll let you look at the typical admission range. Offers that myself will be engaging with you about. If you're making your offer through UCAS, through the normal UCAS cycle, we have a typical offer range. Pick out the degree that you're most interested in and see where you fit on that offer range. You don't need to have studied geography at A-level, but the vast majority of our students have. Okay, we have that capacity that if you're doing, broadly speaking, social science subjects, then you feel as if you still will be well suited if you're getting that sort of grade classification. The key thing I would more formally draw your attention to is the university's offer guarantee scheme. This is what the university does instead of offering conditional offers. I'm sure some of the universities you're going to visit, some of you are interested, might just give you unconditional offers. As a university, we don't want to do that. We're aware that you want to come to university, but life changes. We want you to aspire to do as well as you can at your A-levels, not just think, I'm in, I can just coast, this is going to be fine. So I'm going to give you an offer within that range, in line with your predicted grades from your A-level lecturers, okay? But if you choose us as your first choice in that first round of UCAS applications, then we have this offer guarantee scheme, which means that even if you drop a grade from the offer that we give you, you will still have a place with us, and you will still have guaranteed accommodation should you wish it. If I'm honest with you, how that plays out in practice is that it will be at the bottom end of this range. So effectively, you think about that for human geography, and you missed a grade, so ultimately it turns into the equivalent of triple B. You'll still have a place if you put us as your first choice. We understand that this process of applying for universities is one that's riddled with anxiety and unknowns at every turn. But we want you to aspire, we want you to be as good as you can be. But if you make that commitment to us, we want to offer some sort of reciprocal commitment back, echoing that idea that we're not simply studying communities out there in the world, but we want to build one, and we want you to be part of it as well. Okay. So, my last slide. So, do you want the possibility of a professionally accredited course? Our human geography course is accredited by the Royal Geographical Society, one of the first in the country that was simply human geography. Our geography and planning course is accredited by the Royal Town Planning Institute, and our urban planning and development course is accredited by the Royal Town Planning Institute and the Royal Institute for Chartered Surveyors. Each of these modules therefore build year on year throughout our undergraduate programmes to reach these professional accreditations, to give you an excellent academic understanding of both the critical transforming and engaging way of doing the world, but makes you more employable. It leads you into those careers if you're interested in them. Are you interested in the opportunity of getting a paid placement year? If you choose our undergraduate programs, you have that opportunity. You don't need to necessarily apply for what will turn into a 4-year undergraduate program. You can apply for a 3-year program and then choose for a year in industrial placement at the end of year 1, or you can choose for the 4-year program immediately and then change your mind at the end of year 1. The options are open for you, okay? You're not putting yourself into cul-de-sacs at this stage. But the opportunity to take a paid year in industrial placement in your 3rd year of your studies, then come back to us and do a 4th year, you can do in any of our undergraduate programs. You might think, oh, that's great, John, but a whole year? That turns into 4 years. I'm going to be nearly dead when I get out. Thinking, well, if you don't want to commit to it at this stage, you can still get a work experience within the existing 3-year structure. There's a module that you can do in our 2nd year of our program called Geographies of Employment that allows you to get up to 70 hours of voluntary work experience, so you can boost your CV, you can get a kind of a career adjacent taste of what the world of work is like within the core structure of our undergraduate program. Well, this is great, John. You think, okay, so I can get accreditation, I can perhaps get some experience of the world of work, but how do you teach, and what's the everyday like? Can I do on field study visits, for example? Yes. Year 1, year 2 and the final year, both local, national and international. There's a whole range of event teaching, if you like, from half-day experiences in planning inquiries, for example, local consultations, going to find out about the Cardiff City region in year 1, the place that will form your home for the first 3 years of your life, in your undergraduate experience with us, I should say. In the 2nd year, we go national, around the UK, and in the final year, we go to Europe. Now, I'm hesitating here, because this is a point of transition for us as a school. I think it's fair to, we used to go on long-haul visits as a result of COVID and a result of us researching, teaching and getting involved in institutional decisions about the climate emergency, or as Don Haraway calls it, the climate urgency. We're thinking we need to be scaling back our long-haul international field study visits. So we're working on a local, national and European scale now, and trying to do those European trips as overland, that's not a verb really, but doing it overland and by sea as much as we can rather than by air, to give our students a sense that you can ask extraordinary questions about the world out there without necessarily going to exotic places. And we're incredibly privileged in the West at having a lot of places that we can ask key questions about the world on our doorsteps. So yes, event-based learning throughout our curricula, but within the context of the climate urgency. You think, okay, John, we can go for trips abroad, residential trips, and to an extent, I should say, year 1 and year 2 completely subsidised. If you want to do a trip in the final year, then it's subsidised by the school to the tune of 66%. Okay, so if students want to come on an international field study visit with us, they can. But in the final year, there's a third of the cost that has to be contributed by the students, and that's why you see a lot of our students working here today, student reps, etc. Because there's lots of opportunities to earn the money to pay for the trips through what we do as a school. Right. Last 10 minutes. I've only got this slide to go, it's alright people. We've only got a few minutes to go. But you can visit abroad, but can I study abroad? I want to dust off my GCSE French. I want to go and study. Yeah, if you want to, you can study abroad with us. The spring semester of your 2nd year can be spent studying abroad at a range of our different partner institutions: North America, Northern Europe, Southern Europe, even further afield, Australia, New Zealand, etc. Anything that's in Northern Europe is taught through the medium of English. Anything in Southern Europe, you're going to need more than workaday Greek to be able to understand that. You need the language. But there are a range of opportunities to get language training within the school, and if you're interested in studying abroad, you can do it. We're a very well-resourced school. We just do human geography. We have about 55 full-time members of staff who are human geographers, planners or urban designers. We can draw upon a range of academic skills to support you throughout your studies. We've got a range of quality rooms like this, computer studios, computer software, etc. And our student reps will happily give you a tour if you've not had one already, so you can get and see a feel of the school. But the support that we have for undergraduates is very strong. This is allied by our personal tutor system. Someone like myself or Ed or Joe will be allocated to you when you arrive with us, and we will take you through your whole undergraduate career. So there'll be a friendly face, an open door, someone that you can share your trials and tribulations and your successes with, someone who will know your name and is beyond simply a number in a classroom, but someone who's going to be alongside you throughout your undergraduate career. Cheerlead you at graduation and offer you that academic reference at the end of the system. So, question: do you want to be part of a community that seeks to create creative, confident, active, critical citizens who want to go out there in the world? If you do, then please consider coming to Cardiff. And I'll leave you with a quotation that's often attributed to Nelson Mandela, but actually was written by the artist Marianne Williamson, which probably says something about power they think in society. Going back to that point, are you a singular individual or are you part of something larger? We ask ourselves, who am I? Simply me. To be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous, darling. You can imagine RuPaul saying this on drag. Who are you? To be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous. Actually, who are you not to be? You're the future, sitting in this room. Make a good decision about where you want to go and what you want to be part of. Because it's not just in some of us. It's in everyone, and it's in everyone when we consider ourselves both a social and a spectral being as well. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much. I'm Ed and Joe will gladly answer any questions you have here. If you've got a question that you're dying to ask, that you think actually this is such I'm building you up, such a really important question that the world wants to hear it and the answer to it, then please ask it now in a couple of minutes. If not, we'll hang around and answer questions one-to-one. If you want to go up to committee room 2, there's a range of my other colleagues and student reps up there. We'll answer any questions you have about the school, the programmes, and give you a little bit of a tour. I get a sense people want to get out. So, thank you very much. Thank you for coming, and hope you have a lovely day. Thank you today as well. See, I've got. So, this gives you a broad indication, and to be honest with you, I think now that's down to about 5% of the exam. This is year 1. Across all our programs, generally speaking, it's now about 5% exam in year 1. Year 2, no exams. Final year, no exams. A whole range of group work and a range of coursework assessments, from writing a press release, from doing a dissertation, from doing a film, to doing a group sort of a normal essay.
Do you know where the other one is?
A web page, an executive report, Republic inquiry, a whole range of it. What we want, the students have a small experience of doing exams, realising that's only one way of articulating knowledge. There's a whole range of ways of learning to do so. You're going to need out there in the real world. And that's why we align a whole range of assessments to that. Okay?
So it's like done module by module?
Yes. Every module's worth 20 credits, and it's assessed to the equivalent of 4,000 words. So that could be one 4,000 word essay, but most commonly it might be two 2,000 word essays, or equally commonly one 2,000 word essay and something different, like this presentation, okay? So yeah, so you're assessed per semester per module. So you might do
17% is above it,
modules per semester. And what my colleague module in year 2 is they're doing one now, which is in week 3, and he's doing week 6. Then I'll set another one in week 6, which is to be in after Christmas. Okay? So it's incremental.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Hey.
Very good question.
Sorry. How many places for planning?
Oh, human geography planning. Well, there are no ceilings per module, per degree. We take about 170, 175 students per year. So that positions us as kind of medium sized in terms of intake. A lot of our competitors are 250, 300 students. So this would be the largest room we're ever in. This room is a 200 room. So effectively that's our right, so we normally take 170, 175. And of those, half of them are normally human geographers, and the other half are evenly split between geography and planning, and urban planning and design. That's not something we manage, that's something that the nature takes its course, and it's broadly speaking in that area. So that gives you a little indication of class size from that. Sorry. It might be the same question.
I just want to know about the placements.
Placements?
Yeah.
So placements in the third and 4 years. In year 2 we have often the people choosing a table to do the job module, and through that module they are helping to understand what that means to get one, where one might go to get one. We don't actually go and write the do that themselves.
But do you have sort of links or regular people that you tend to send them out to?
We have, as a school, we've been doing planning places since 1990. So we're really well connected in terms of government planning.
So yeah, so is that local authority?
Yeah, it can be local authority, private institutions that are doing the job. About 5 or 6 years now, and every job that is worked on. And often, some of the planning is
I was going to say, are they within Wales or are they further afield?
all across the UK, and also creativity.
Great.
So yeah, lots of opportunities.
Great.
And like I say, you don't necessarily have to apply for that program at the point of entry. You can offer this type of program and do that.
Oh, right.
Good. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Sorry.
I've done my own grades. Does that make a difference to the preference? No. Then, like, you know, the human geography, the Cardiff is very low.
Oh, right. Well, you can ask about that.
Well, that's going to be so.
I have another question.
Now, direct questions.
Yeah, no,
Managed well. If we were in that A-level with and we're lots of things, then just so you know, there's 2 stages of the cycle. There's the normal UCAS cycle, where all universities are slightly different. And then there's that one. Okay, because that one, they know their number. Right, so the numbers over or under, right under, whatever. When that comes around, what matters is points. So as the B's and the EPQ, they all have points. Right? So if you had come to us in that period, as it was last August, we looked at your points, and if you took greater than so we would have made that offer. Some universities, and what I'll try to take on your, to crudely put it more in the back, there's no uncertainty about your grades. You've got them. So I would look at them like UCAS points and say, do you want a student for those universities?
Sorry, I have another question.
Go.
If I'm applying for like just I've pretty much done my personal statement, and if I'm applying for like just geography courses, there's like a bit of environmental in there. Are you going to look at that and think, oh, there's like this environmental?
I think what anybody is looking for is enthusiasm. You're going to be the person who's going to ask me a difficult question. So you're pretty much good. But in a class, and you're going to go, oh yeah, but what about? Enthusiastic, engaged. If you evidence that somehow, and that might be just with a beep going across the thing, you're beeping in Tesco, you know, thinking, well, where did this rice come from? This is the iPhone thing. It doesn't need to be extraordinary. It can be every day and a pound on Monday, exactly, it's not important at all. So if you can energy, and evidence that. That's what you need to do.
You just answered my question as well, thank you.
Okay.
I'm sure we're wasting off on human if it's like not like guaranteed like. Cause it's not. I haven't got like A, B, B. So it's not A, B, B. So it's like, why would you look at this person and have a look at where it goes? No,
There is a logic to that.
Yeah.
But that's where the personal statement comes in,
Yeah.
and also the odd situation where you're actually guaranteeing rates. You know, who knows where? You know, people's predicted grades are often half of them are 50% higher than what they actually get. So it's like a third in hand. Okay. So it's far more nuanced climate in which you're engaging. Okay. Cheers. Hey, sorry. Of course you can. What I've actually done is record this. We're probably still recording it now. We're recording your question.